Hey guys, this is Woody the Unexceptional Gamer, and I am here with DJ Arcus. Can you say hello?
Hi there.
So this is an idea for a video that I have had for almost 6 months now. Longtime subscribers might remember that I sort of put out the call for people who had worked on, AAA games or indie games, etc., and were actual game developers, because a lot of my subscribers have an interest, they obviously have an interest in gaming. They also have an interest in making this their career and in terms of being a game developer. So DJ Arcus here is a game developer. Can you tell us about some of the titles that you've worked on and I don't know, what they were like?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, I started 12 years ago, professional development. I started work for a company called Climax, which are a UK-based racing game developer. It's quite strange. So that was PS2 work. So they've just finishing up on the N64. They're just starting on PS2, and I got brought in. Quite funny, really, because they wanted someone to work on audio, but they didn't know they wanted someone to do audio. So I started, and they were like, "Oh, we don't have anything for you to do. Can you do audio?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I got given a PS2 test kit and sat there in the corner and did engine sounds. And
So what? I don't even know what that means. Like, how do you do audio?
well, in this case, what they had is they had an engine system that did. I mean, it dealt with different rev bands of the engine. It dealt with concept of load and offload, and they wanted to have real-time distortion, so it actually work a bit like a guitar amp, but in real time on the engine source, which is something that had never been done before. I mean, this is where I began to learn that in the games industry, if you want to do something, you kind of have to do it yourself. You can't Google it. It's not out there, because there's only 20 other people in the world who know what you know, and they're not going to put it on Google.
And which game was this for?
That was for MotoGP.
Okay.
So that was an Xbox motorbike game, and it was the first Xbox Live game ever. So that was very exciting at the time.
And what are some of the biggest titles you worked on?
I don't know what the biggest selling title is. I should probably find out one day. My personal favourite is probably Burnout 3. That's the 7th highest Metacritic game on the Xbox ever. And I don't think there are going to be any more Xbox games, so I'll stick with that one forever. And it was, we knew it was good, and when the reviews came in, it was incredible. We were averaging 97% in the reviews, and it was just the best thing ever. But I mean, you hear about crunch in the industry, but that was mind-boggling. We did about 9 months of crunch. And when I say crunch, I don't just mean a day a week. I was doing up to 100 hours a week.
So I intend to get to that. But the first question I wanted to ask is what the career progression is like, right? So what is an entry-level job like day to day? And then on the way up, what is your next position until, I guess, the top of the career? How's that roll?
That's an interesting question, because in normal businesses, that's fairly fixed. In the computer games industry, it doesn't work like that. So the computer games industry is very young. I mean, I started coding when I was 5. Don't laugh. Literally, I got my first computer for Christmas, and a friend of mine taught me to program, and I was literally 5. I mean, that was what, 29 years ago. That was the beginning of the games industry, and in the 80s, the games industry expanded from this bedroom thing into a proper industry. But a lot of the people who started off in their bedrooms running their own company are still running those companies, and they don't run it like normal. So at one company, you might have the concept of a lead, and another company, and that lead might like deal with the groups. You've got like the lead AI programmer just deals with the AI section of the game.
And what a lead would do would be to write some of his own code, right? He takes on tasks, but he also looks at other people's skill sets and distributes out the work to them. Is that pretty much what a lead is about?
Yeah, well, it varies. You see, at one end of the spectrum, a lead does no programming at all, literally none. They've done programming. They know when their subordinates are bullshitting, basically, and they can deal with that side of it. I mean, they're basically managers. And at the other end, a lead can also do almost no management, and they're purely extremely good at their specified field.
Right.
So it's quite strange, because most places don't have this. Most industries have this fixed definition, and the games industry is all over the place because it's so young.
So I want to talk about the crunch now, right? So I'm on the outside here, but the crunch, or sometimes called the death march, this section of the project where you have a deadline that seems impossible to meet, and to meet it, people work 100 hours or more per week, and it can last from 3 months, it can be 9 months, it can be whatever. It's kind of a legend in the gaming industry how they work their guys so incredibly hard. Is it true?
Oh, it is absolutely true. A lot of it is sadly because the job is fun, and don't get me wrong, it's hard work, but it is a lot of fun. But because it's so much fun, people don't mind doing it. Burnout. I mean, the crunch on Burnout was to a degree the end of what I could cope with, because so that was 9 months of up to 100 hours a week, and it's just numbers. I mean, even saying it now, to me, that's just numbers. But to give you a perspective, I mean, that means I was at work for 10 in the morning, and I would work through till 2 or 3 a.m., go home, and then come back to work 7 days a week. You know, I had no life. Yeah. I worked and I slept.
Yeah, that's pretty much the peak of working, right? I've been there too. When you work just about all the time that you're awake, it removes all the time for fun in your life. It's a tough time.
I mean, the revelation hit me. I mean, it was the middle of summer. It was blazing hot. And when you've been coding at that level for so long, you can't just sleep. And I came home, and it was boiling hot, and I was sweating. And I ended up building a shelving unit at 4 o'clock in the morning, wearing nothing but a pair of boxers. And I remember standing there with a drill in my hand, stopping and going, there's something very wrong with my life. And it was at that point I decided that I didn't want to be... I mean, Criterion, the Burnout guys, we were the golden boys of the industry. Everybody wanted to be at Criterion. We were hot property. And because of that, everybody put in every hour they could because we knew that we were the best. After a year, partly the EA thing, we did Burnout 3. We knew we couldn't beat it. We wanted to do new IP. We wanted to do new things, but EA wanted us to do Burnout 4. And even internally, we started calling it Churn Out. And that was the point where, you know, this is the problem with the industry. It's sequelitis. It's just the same games again and again and again. And that was really what kind of broke it for me. And,
so do you find that all your coworkers are young, and that's at somewhere around, I don't know, childbearing years, they decide to get an IT job or something?
Well, it's kind of changing. So the industry is traditionally now full of juniors and senior programmers. So you've got the 22, 23 people who think they know it all, and then you've got the 45 to 50-year-olds who do know it all. It was kind of traditional until about 5-10 years ago. You're quite right. They'd hit that childbearing age and they wouldn't leave. Now, the people who are running the companies have got kids, and they're a lot less happy about overtime. And the industry's kind of growing up a little, which is great.
Okay. So the other thing is the job stability thing. So I have been told by people in the industry that when things go right, when you're like, I don't know, I'll say a Call of Duty title or a Burnout title, and things go amazingly well, then everyone gets a $1,500 bonus. They go on to the sequel, and that represents, you know, wonderful success. And when things don't go right, you know, when it's supposed to be a big hit, but it kind of fell down, that everyone gets laid off and everyone's fired, essentially. Is that on target?
Yeah. A guy I work with called Alex Ward, he has a very, very true quote, which is, you're only as good as your last game. Bizarre Creations are probably the best example of this, because everybody loves Bizarre. Bizarre did such good games. And then you sort of say, well, what did Bizarre do really recently that are good? And they're like, oh, well, you know, Geometry Wars. I'm like, yeah, but big games, because Bloodstone didn't do very well. And so, you know, I mean, now, again, they're a high-profile company. You know, they were the Bungie of their genre. Mm-hmm. But only a couple of games that didn't sell. Activision started to get itchy feet, and it doesn't. Until quite recently, I worked for Activision. I came in at the tail end of the DJ Hero stuff, and I was part of the Hero business unit. And as everybody knows, Activision have shut down the Hero business unit, so, you know, everyone got made redundant. And
so the Hero business unit was Guitar Hero, DJ Hero, games like that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of other ones, a lot of which didn't get released. The Hero is quite a strong brand, and they were very keen to keep it strong. But yeah, when we received the news about this, we all went down the pub, and we were just having this sort of, not quite Russian roulette, but we're just talking about redundancies and seeing who won. And one poor guy He'd been in the industry in 9 years and had 13 redundancies. We're like, man, we shouldn't have invited you into our team. But yeah, it is true. I mean, you get some terrible horror stories about people coming to work and the directors sold the company to investors, and he's buggered off with his yacht, and the doors are locked, or the security guards out, and they'll let you in one at a time with a box to get your stuff. Again, it's a sign of the industry being a very young thing. I mean, I always compare it to the film industry, which has been around over 100 years, whereas we've only been around 30 years. So it is slowly growing up. It's also interesting. So, I mean, again, the film industry, it's all contract work, 100% contract work, whereas the games industry is very little contract work. So, again, I can sort of see in the future that the games industry moving more towards being like the film industry, but it's just not there yet.
So on the screen, we're watching Fortress Craft, and you wrote Fortress Craft.
Yes. So a couple of years ago, I decided to start doing indie games. Microsoft offered up this amazing system where anyone can write their own indie games, and
you do this as a side business.
Yeah.
And you have a day job too.
Yeah. So I do computer game development full time during the day and in the evening. People ask me how I do this, but I kind of reply with, I don't know what else I do. I mean, I don't really watch television. I'll watch films on like a second laptop while I'm programming, but if I didn't write computer games, I would do my own thing. Everybody wants to get into the games industry. And one thing you'll learn that when you're there, you don't quite get to do your own thing. Unless you're very, very lucky and you're working on something like Little Big Planet, which is a small team with a lot of creativity, you'll find you're a little cog in a very big machine. I mean, if you're working on something like Assassin's Creed, oh my God, I mean, they've got like 800 people working on that. And you'll find one guy, some poor guy somewhere, his entire job for a year was making sure that every bit of ground was tagged as dirt, or concrete, or that's it. That's your job. And you're like, I'm in the games industry. What do you do? I tag the floors.
on Fortress Craft, this thing's been selling, right?
Yes, absolutely. More than I would ever have deemed possible. It's a very embarrassing forum post, which I should delete, but I will keep there, where I estimated the first month's sales at 2,000 sales. And it's now just beginning to approach the 300,000 mark. I mean, should be tomorrow, literally 300,000 sales, which is, I mean, I cannot describe how shocked I am that it's done so very, very well. I mean, I've been accused of all sorts of horrible things about the way it developed. Some guy is claiming that I've even stolen other games' source code. But because if our game was just purely on the hype and purely on the vilification, we'd have had a lot of trials and no purchases. But our purchase ratio is mind-boggling. I mean, it's still over 80% after 3 months, which is
80.
80%. So,
yeah. So
for every 100 copies, 80 people buy it. That's how good it is.
So what people don't know is on Xbox, when you put together an indie game, there's a format you have to follow, and you have to offer a free demo. And then what he's talking about is the conversion of people who've tried the free demo that actually bought the game afterwards, and it's 80%. What's normal? Normal
on Xbox Live Arcade is something like 8%.
All right. So you're at 10 times the normal, an order of magnitude.
It's 10 times normal. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I mean, do you make more on indie games than you do on your day job?
Yeah. At this rate, I mean, the thing is, if at my day job I get paid no matter what happens, whereas with the indie game thing, it's got to keep selling. I mean, I've got to do new projects. I mean, I'm still working very hard on the first version of Fortress Craft. I've still been putting in loads and loads of things that people are requesting. Until the sales, really begin to tail off, I'm just going to continue with that because it's making enough money for me to do this full time.
What kind of we only have 45 seconds. What kind of education does it take to get into writing games?
I failed my maths exams. I failed my English exams. I didn't go to college. I didn't go to university.
That's not what I expected.
I am living proof that you don't need an education. If someone tells you need a degree, prove them wrong.
So what would be the typical education amongst your coworkers?
Typical education is a degree that is completely useless. the Burnout designer, bless him, he's got a degree in fluid dynamics. That was his, and he's an audio designer. So a degree will help you get into the industry, but you'll find it's very, very useless. Everything I learned 5 years ago is about PS2s. It has no use anymore. When you're in the industry, you'll be learning all the time, and that's the skill you need. You need to be able to learn stuff quickly.
Wow. So fundamentals of computer science, how to code, object-oriented, et cetera, none of it, you say you don't need it.
I never did it. I learned it all myself, and I learned all that stuff before we even had the internet. These days, I'd love to learn it all again. Go on to Google, games programming, object-oriented programming, C# tutorials, C++, Java. It's all there, and you know, we had to get books from the library and read books that were 10 years out of date and stuff.
All right, so we're over time. Is there anything you wanted to talk about before we close?
The only thing I just want to say is just I'm very, very glad that I decided to start Fortress Craft. I'm very, very glad I'm doing it, and I absolutely will keep doing it. And I've got so many awesome ideas, and I totally invite everyone who's here to follow me, to follow my ideas. And if you've got a really awesome idea, let me know, and I'll see if I can get it in the game.
Very good. All right, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
All right, bye.